Hello everyone. In this video I'm going to show you how to project textures onto a model, but also primarily the reason I'm going to show you this is because it's the easiest way to sort of match seams together. So really once you match the seam well enough, you can kind of texture it however you'd like, and I'll just show you, I'll just get into it and show you. So if I hold right click and I do assign new material and I go into shader, I'm just gonna click on a blend for this, and I'm just doing this just so when I export it, there's a material that Photoshop can sort of read with it. And I'm gonna do File, Export Selection. So I don't have that checkerboard on there, I'm gonna just overwrite this tree OBJ and make sure I have it as an OBJ export. And then I'm going to click Export Selection. In case you don't have that option, you can go to Settings, Preferences, Plugin Manager, and in here under OBJ Export, it's in alphabetical order just so I can show you. OBJ Export, just load and auto load, refresh and close, and then do that process I just did. Now in Photoshop, I've already downloaded a texture off textures.com, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to File, Open, and I'm going to go to open this tree OBJ and click open. And I'm going to change my width to 1024 and my height to 1024, and then I'm going to click OK. And now that I've got this open, I want to start to texture it. But one of the things I want to be able to see on here, I'm going to start with this big part here. I want to see the seam. So I'm going to select my brush tool, and I'm just going to paint right down here just so I can see the seam. And I'm doing this just to basically show you. And I'm going to go back to this arrow tool, the move tool, and in 3D these are your camera movement tools, and I'm just going to rotate around, and now you can really see that hard seam on my tree. So I'm going to select this infinite light thing that just kind of hovers around, and you'll see you get this semicircular sphere thing, and I'm just going to rotate it around so I get a little bit better lighting on this side, and then I'm just going to click off to the side. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to select my tree bark texture that I found. I'm going to go Control A, Control C, and I'm going to go in here, and then I'm going to go to Control V. And I'm also going to just simply bring this down in size. I don't know, something like that. I'm going to bring it down in size, and I'm just going to start right here. And now I'm also going to press Control A, Control C, because I want to keep that same size for this. And I'm going to press Control D now to deselect. So select all and copy after I resized it, and then I'm going to press Control D to deselect everything. And I have that now if I press Control V in here. And I'll just go ahead and sort of start to line these up, and I'm going to tap one up on my arrow key. Now that I've got these all lined up properly, I'm going to right click. I can even shift select all three of these or hold control and select each one individually, and go right click and merge. I'll merge layers first. Now I'll right click and go merge down. And what you're going to see is that seam is, I took care of that seam really well in here. And if I zoom in on my texture, you can see that the seams line up on both sides. So it's a super crazy useful trick. And I'll come down here, and I just created a separate layer that I'm going to make a I don't know, like a grayish kind of color for now. And I want to use my, oh, it won't let me use my paint bucket tool, which is okay. I'll come back to that later. But you'll see I've lined up these seams perfectly by using that tool. And the reason that's so important is because when you rotate around an object in 3D, if you've ever seen a video game or anything like any Pixar movie or anything like that, you're going to see that they don't have any seams visible. So that's one way to do that using Photoshop. And I want you to do your best to texture this entire thing using that technique around the tree on the top of the tree. And it's great because if you start to create a library of assets, of your own assets that you've modeled together with texturing and unwrapping and everything that goes into it, you're going to may never know what angle you're going to use it from, and it'll limit you from using certain objects if you have a hard seam on something. So just an FYI to kind of keep in mind. And now I'm just going to continue with this, and I can just go ahead. I could do this actually one way, but I want to make sure that when I do this I create a new layer. So now I'm going to press Control V, and I'm just going to do this again here, but because I have it on a separate layer, I'm going to press Control E to merge all layers, and then right click and merge down. And I'm going to go over here, and because I put it on a separate layer, I'm starting to get pretty cool results, except I don't want to have all of this stuff over here sort of messing with the seam that I already really nicely created. So and you'll notice down here on this polygon it didn't work as well. So I want to stick with my original, and how I'm going to do that is on this layer I'm going to go Layer, Layer Mask, and Reveal All, and if I use white it's going to show, but if I use black it's going to hide, and I'm just going to paint off that part of my texture. And I want to keep it to a certain point where the other texture stretching is happening, something like that. And on this side, I don't think I'm going to want it anywhere. And I can just erase sort of any of these really weird kind of looking things here. But I'm going to keep it there for now, and I'm going to create a new layer and come back over here to my tree. And I know this is difficult, but just do your best. And I'll start that same process again on my new layer. And I'll merge all these down, pressing Control E after shift selecting all of them, and right click and merge down. And now I'll come back over here, and I'll take a look, and I'll come back over here. I'll come back over here, create another new layer. And on this one, I'll go back over here and rotate around, and I'll even rotate my light around so I get better lighting on this side, and Control V. And merge them all down, and right click and merge down. And now I'm going to come back over here, and you'll see I only have about one more section to do. But I noticed this strip right here has a lot of weirdness to it, and it's from this layer. So I'm going to do Layer, Layer Mask, and Reveal All, and now I'm just going to paint that part out. Something like that. And let's just see. Okay. And now I'm going to create one more new layer and come back over to my tree and rotate around and adjust my light and Control V, and we're just going to do something like so, and merge these down, and right click, and then merge down, and come back over here, and notice if there's any distortion, and Layer Mask, Reveal All, and just paint out the parts that sort of came out a little weird at first. Alright, so I've done that to my tree all the way around. I'm really starting to like the results that I'm getting. And I'm going to continue on doing this all the way through. And I know that these parts all have, I'm going to group these and just put base. And you'll notice that it's starting to look pretty clean. And I noticed some areas, this has a little blurriness to it, but I'm sure if I went and did a layer mask on one of these, it would start to look pretty clean. But you'll notice that there is no seam on it, which is the primary objective that I have when I'm using Photoshop projection techniques, because it's just really hard to, if you do it in just the UV editor, trying to match seams up. Even if it's a seamless texture, it just does not always look right. So this is a great way to sort of bypass that. And then I'm gonna just I'm just gonna begin to start to create layers and just start to merge these down all the way through. And I'm sure at some point I'm going to get some overlapping and stuff, but I'm not too concerned about that yet. And I might get some strange distortion. But now on here, I have the front of it kind of projection textured, but I would also like to get this seam done as well. And I'm going to start by going back over here and creating a new layer, and then coming back over here, and then I'm just going to start to get this down, because I'm most worried about this on the seams. That's really it. I just want the seams to match up, and this is good enough for what I'm trying to accomplish. And now I'm going to move on to my next branch. And actually, before I do that, I'm going to create another layer and come back over here. And I know the seam runs right over along this thing, and I'll just merge this down one at a time. And I'm going to try and not get it looks like I missed a spot. The other parts of the branch in there. And then I'll go in at the end and start to do some tweaking myself. And I'll come back over here. So this one and this one is, I don't know, I'm just going to call it branch 1. And then this one, I'm really just trying to get those seams to match, and it doesn't look like it did too great of a job on it. So I'm going to come back over here and just get it at a slightly different angle and rotate my light around and try it again. And if I have to rotate my image, that's fine. And I'm going to duplicate this one just so I can line it up right with it. And merge these down, or merge layers and then merge down. And now I'll come back over here and see how it did. And maybe once I start doing this side, maybe my seams on this side, I honestly don't even really know off the top of my head. And if I get these going on other branches, I can always use a reveal mask. And merge down. And I'm not getting the exact results that I was hoping for on this one. It doesn't seem to be catching. Maybe I'm at the wrong angle or something. But you can see where I'm going with it. And what I'll do is to fill this section in the middle, I'm just going to simply fill it in the best I can. And now I'll come back over here and take a look at it. But really the point of this entire thing is you could essentially do it and just start to fill this entire thing in. It is a seamless texture, so it will look okay, but really the point of this is to get that, and I'm just kind of rushing because I don't want to spend too much time on this. Just to show you how it can work. So the real one I did was the base here, and it turned out really well. And I'm just kind of filling these in at all approximately the same sizes. But that's how you the easiest way to sort of get rid of seams, especially if it's something that's not as seamless as this, is to sort of use that Photoshop projection in the manner that I had shown you. And I'm just trying to knock this all the way through. I want you to try the Photoshop projection on the base and try to get a nice clean seam. After that, I know it's a lot of work to get every edge and everything around, especially with the particular shape of this object. So I do want you to complete the texture, and preferably a little bit cleaner than mine, but I do know it takes time. So make sure you try to do that Photoshop projection texturing before you just start laying textures down. And I'll go back over here, and now it looks pretty good. So from here, I'm just going to save out this file. Week 13. I'll save it as a TGA, no alpha channels, and tree bark diffuse. Save and OK. And now I can go into Maya, and I'm just going to use the blend because it's already on there. And I'll assign the file. We all know how to add a AI standard surface texture and all of that now. Click open, and it doesn't even look like I finished texturing it. But the main part I want you to see is the tree bark. This section right here, these faces. You will not be able to tell where the seam is, because, and let's take a look right here, through the texture you really can't see it, and that's the whole point of this exercise. As far as the rest of them, you'll see here, because I didn't use Photoshop projection, you can see the seam, and this blurriness is actually just because I didn't go ahead and use a reveal all map. But here's my seam. Can't really see it, but then when you get down here, you can can see that hard seam. You see how this is a little bit blurry and this is really sharp and crisp right where they meet. And again here, so that Photoshop projection can prevent that. Where did that seam go? Right here. So anyway, and let me turn down eccentricity so we can see it a little bit better. So anyway, right here is the seam, and you can't really notice it. And I could even clean it up a little bit more because I can tell I got a little bit of stretching on here from one of my projections, and that's when I would use that reveal all. Anyway, that's something that I really wanted to show you because it's such an important part of modeling and texturing, to not display any seams. And you can really tell right here. It's not as obvious, but the closer you get, the harder that seam looks. So I just really can't emphasize enough how useful that technique is. And you'll have this tree, and if you want, you can always import your leaves and start to create or create new ones with more leaves on it and start to create your own trees for outdoor scenes. Anyway, that's all I've got for you in this video. I hope it was useful. I know it's useful, and yeah, if you have any questions, shoot me a message. But thanks for watching, and yeah, that's all I got for you.